I would love to now introduce Amber Codron, our guest for today. And you're very kindly going to be telling us about your endometriosis cycle story. So thank you for doing so in advance, because it is a big deal to share anything around the experience of having a womb. Sometimes it's incredibly heavy and sometimes it's very light, amazing and magical, but
Yeah.
there's a spectrum, and we're here for all of it.
So to strip it right back to the beginning, I kind of started to feel really unwell towards the end of 2011. I remember actually being at my brother's wedding and it all being fine. And then literally at the last minute, the lights came up and I just thought I was going to pass out. I just felt so unwell. And the next month, I had 2 periods that month. And then in January, I just had like the most horrific period. I've never experienced anything like it. I'd probably had my period for about 4 years by that point. And I would literally was just like, it was just like the most horrific experience. I was like, what is going on with my body? I couldn't even, I wasn't wearing tampons at that time. So I was only wearing sanitary pads and I was so heavy. And I was at school every single day. And there's that fear of like, oh my God, I'm going to leak through my clothes. And it's just all this anxiety that's like surrounding periods. And I ended up going home early from school one day because I really didn't feel well. I felt really like dizzy and like I had like a cold basically. And that whole week I was in home, and my mum was kind of getting to the stage where she was like, come on, you need to get back to school now. I don't think you're really that unwell. And I was like, no, I really just don't feel well at all. She's like, okay, well, either you go to school or we call the doctor. I said, call the doctor, like I don't feel well. And I remember walking up the stairs to my room, and literally our stairs aren't that high, but I remember having to take a break after like 4 because my whole vision just went black and I just like was completely wiped out, had no energy. Went to the doctor, asked me to get an eye test, asked me to get an ECG and get a blood test. So I did 2 of them. The ECG and the blood test was the following week. The ECG was like, oh, I think she's just nervous, like she'll be fine. But the blood test, I had to take the morning off school. And then when I got back to school, literally I was at school for an hour and the front desk lady came up to my classroom and was like, hi, Amber, mum's coming to get you. I was like, what? Like I've literally just got back to school. So I'm sat there in the waiting room and she was sat with me. I was like, I know something's wrong because they never usually just like sit with you and chat with you. They just let you kind of like wait for your mum. Mum turned up, looked like horrified. She looked absolutely terrified. And I was like, what is going on? She was like, oh, well, they've taken the blood out of you. So now they need to put it back in. And I'm like, what? She's like, oh no, I'm only joking. Get back home. I'm like putting on a nice outfit. I've like put some makeup on. Oh, I've got the afternoon off school, just going to the hospital, get in a cab and go to A&E. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Obviously, the doctor had called my mum and said, get your daughter out of school right now. She's going to pass out at any minute. She's so unwell. She's not got enough blood in her body. So I get to A&E and the woman's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I feel fine. She's like, you are so severely anemic. I can tell by your skin. You need to go and see a doctor. So I ended up having a blood transfusion because I just didn't have enough blood in my body. And I spent the whole next day with 2 pints being pumped back into my body. It was like, I was just terrified. I was like, I don't understand what's going on. And following that, just really traumatic event of just being like 13, 14 years old, no idea what's going on. I was in and out of hospital all the time for gynecology appointments. I then had like a 3-month long period following the blood transfusion, which again was just like what my body just did not know what was going on. They wanted to put me on the pill, and they did all these like hematology tests to see if there's something wrong with my blood. And after about a year, there were just no answers. It was like, we don't really know what's going on. Everything looks fine. Everything looks normal. I went on the pill. It was the most horrific experience of my life. Literally haven't touched contraception after that because it just messed me up so badly. And following that, it was just kind of like years of really heavy, really painful periods, just like didn't feel like I really was like living my life to the point where I was like periods was always like, oh, my period's here. It was never like, oh, I'll be fine. Some months were fine and I kind of got on with it. And then more recently, I'd say probably when middle of uni, my period just became so horrifically painful and I just like really couldn't do anything. I was bedbound, just like constantly popping painkillers. And because I was told that I was anemic. I'm constantly battling kind of like really low iron levels. So whenever my period comes around, I'm really lethargic, I'm really tired, I get really dizzy, and my heart would be pumping all the time, and like I'd get heart palpitations just from like going to the loo. So I was really just constantly feeling unwell. And I think it spurred a lot of health anxiety in me. So every single time there was something kind of wrong, I just thought it was the end of the world, and I was just freaking out because I was so fine before my blood transfusion. I thought everything was okay. And then to be told something is so like seriously wrong with you at such a young age, I was like, this is just not, this doesn't, it completely freaked me out. And then I'd say more in the more recent past, probably like last October, my periods just changed completely, and I was just wiped out for 2 weeks in pain. And it was the week of my period was really painful but quite light, which was a nice like change. But then it became this thing where after my period was over, every couple of hours I would just get 30 minutes of searing pain all down my body, all down my legs. And it was like I couldn't even take painkillers because they'd come back regardless. It was like it was on a cycle, and it was so weird that it was like clockwork. I was waking up at 5 a.m. every single day. I was always getting them at like 11:45 because I started like making a diary about it. And I was like, what the hell's going on? So I was away at the moment at that time as well, which was really annoying. I was like, I just want to enjoy my holiday. And I just, every couple of hours I was just in pain, and I was with my boyfriend, and he was like, what on earth is going on with you? Like what is, and I was like, genuinely, I've never felt anything like this before. And it went on for months. And I think a couple of months prior to that, I'd said, look, I've been in hospital in and out of doctor's appointments since I was like 13 years old. The only thing you've not tested me for is endometriosis. This is the last thing that I can tick off my checklist. Please let me do it. Because I was getting so frustrated going to a doctor's appointment and them going, oh, you're fine, just go on the pill. Oh, there's nothing wrong with you. Oh, you know, it's normal. I'm like, it's not normal. I'm breaking out all over my face. I had the worst hormonal acne when I was at university. I was like, this is not a normal body response. Like anyone would be able to like think on their feet and think, no, your body's obviously reacting in a certain way because there's something wrong. Since when did I sign off my letter? I think maybe at this time last year, actually, I spoke to the doctor and said, can you refer me? And she actually said to me, look, I don't think they're going to refer you because you're not on the pill. So I don't think you're really going to get much from this. And I was like, well, as if that really should make a difference. Luckily, they did refer me. And then in October, when it got really bad, I was like, you need to do something about this because I can't live my life like this. So I had one last scan just to check it wasn't like fibroids or polycystic ovaries, and they were like, no, everything's fine. And then I called the doctor. I said, okay, everything's fine, so can you now like push for me to get endometriosis? So that was November, and it got so bad in April that I had to call them and say, I can't live my life. Like I'm massively depressed. I can't, like I have no quality of life. 2 weeks of the month I'm completely out of action. I can't do anything. It was just affecting my whole mental state because I'm just depressed basically for 2 weeks. I can't do anything. No one also was really understanding the amount of pain that I was in. And I think I can be a bit dramatic about stuff. And because I have massive health anxiety, I was like, oh, come on, Amber, like you're fine. I was like, my whole body is just shutting down every couple of hours. And then after calling them and saying, you need to do something about this, I got a call from the clinic and they said, okay, we can book you in July. Do you want to come in to have a laparoscopy? And I was like, yeah, I want to do it. Let's just get it all done. So I went in on the 6th of July to have my laparoscopy, and they found endometriosis. And it was, I mean, the doctor literally told me 10 minutes after I'd come around after general anesthetic. So I was a bit out of it. But I felt so vindicated. I was like, after 11 years of my life, like just constantly fighting with doctors saying, no, you need to do something about this. I'm not going on the pill. This is not normal. Someone had finally gone, yeah, this is what it is. And obviously it's not nice to be told like that you have something. You don't ever want to have to deal now with having endometriosis. But I was also just a bit like, finally, someone has given me an answer, because you don't get answers. No one wants to give you an answer. Their only excuse is just go on the pill, everything will sort itself out. And I just don't think that is a logical thing to do when women all over the world have got all these different issues. This one pill can't be the answer for everyone. So that was like a real like big moment for me to be like, okay, now I know what it is. Now I can kind of like figure out how to deal with it. But yes, that is the 11 long year story of, I've missed, obviously it's lot of detail in the middle, but I won't bore everyone with all the other details. But yeah, that was kind of how I found out that I had endometriosis.
Wow. I mean, you've been through the absolute ringer, and it's just so sad. Like I hear stories a lot. Like actually, I draw comparisons with endometriosis and PMDD in so much as like how long it takes to get to a point where you have some light relief, even though you're still living with this condition. The relief comes from like actually being heard and being seen, and it's abhorrent really that it took that long.
I was saying to my family, I was like, you know what, I feel really grateful that, you know, I said to them when I would like this, like April last year, I want to get referred. And I was like, it's amazing. I've been seen in a year, like all of this has happened in a year. And then I sat there and thought, I've been in and out of hospital since I was 13 years old. No one really like bothered to really figure out what it was. And my mum actually said to me, because I remember going for a blood test when I kind of just after I had to go for blood tests every 3 months to check my iron levels, and my blood count was like normal. And I remember one of the nurses, because I was in the pediatric unit at that point, and she remember her saying, oh, we've checked for endometriosis, you don't have that. And thinking, oh, okay, that's good. And then apparently another nurse had said to my mum, they can't test for endometriosis the way that they've tested your daughter, you need to push for it. And obviously my mum never said that to me, but I in my head was like, oh no, they've told me I don't have it. And then more recently I was like, how did she say that to me? She said to me that you didn't have it. I was like, you didn't even do the test, you didn't even do the necessary test to see if I had it, but somehow you've gone, no, you don't have it. Like, well, how would you know? You can't just make an like, do you know, it was the most bizarre thing to think about it. All the time after, and think about all the conversations I was having with doctor. I mean, I can't specifically pinpoint when my endometriosis. I could have had issues with my periods regardless, and maybe in the last 5 years my body's like developed endometriosis, but still it was just kind of like, this is way too long. I mean, I don't know if it's just because there's not enough understanding around periods. I don't know if it's because they just can't be bothered, or they think women can just get on with it. So it's hard to tell exactly, like, were they doing the right thing back then? I don't know, but do I feel like they could have done more recently, as I've been calling the doctors every single year like something is wrong? Yeah, probably they could have done a bit more, but again, I'm not qualified. I don't have a medical degree. I'm not
You
a
don't
doctor.
The thing is, Amber, you don't have a medical degree, but you know your body, and you've had to know your body. And when another thing I'm seeing is a pattern of like people with endo or PMDD in particular, like you are tracking like a mad person, because you so want to be, you know, loaded with your data, so you can go, can we just like not cut corners here, look at all this data, here you go. Because you know, most of the time you'll be turned around and be like, oh, come back in 3 months and let us know how it's been getting on, etc. So you know, you obviously had to become the expert of your own body in order to sort of fight for yourself, really. And I can only imagine how unbelievably frustrating that must be to, I mean, I think that there's a few different layers going on, right? There's like about who's going to get heard and when, and the issue is just, why are women being batted off so easily and regularly? It's like, are we still under this impression of like the whole hysteria thing that we're like, exactly. Come on, we've moved on from that. Like, you know, we are way more equal in society than we used to be. A long way to go, but it's like, what, like, we're still kind of branded with this hysteria brush and like this whole like ridiculous thing of, no, actually just listen to people tell you what they need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I posted, obviously how we met was through my Instagram post after I kind of like posted about my endometriosis journey. I had so many girls that I didn't really speak to anymore. They were just kind of girls that I'd gone to school with, or girls that I'd like lost touch with. So many people replied to me and said, thank you so much for saying something, and if only doctors would listen to us, and it's horrific, I don't know what to do, it was actually, it made me so angry that, you know, I had a lot of pressure from my mum that even if I was like, oh, I need to call the doctor, she'd be like, call the doctor, like, what are you doing, why are you moaning, go and call the doctor. And that obviously instilled in me like, okay, if anything's wrong, I need to push for it. And she was always like, push, say everything you have to say, don't forget anything. So I'm very grateful that my mum was really kind of like pushing me along this journey. But I can imagine that it does get to a point where you're just like, what's the point in me saying anything? I know what you're going to say to me, you're not even going to help me, why am I going to sit in a doctor's room? And also it really pissed me off, because when I found out that I had endometriosis, the doctor who had done the surgery on me had said, so essentially the only thing you can do is go on the coil and stop your periods until you're ready to have children. And I was like, is that, I was like, what? Like, is that my only option? He went, yeah. It's like, you're looked at, you're stupid. And I'm like, why should I feel like I'm being stupid for wanting to take a necessary precaution for my the danger that could come with being on the coil for the next God knows how many years until I'm ready to have kids? I don't need to put that added stress in my body. And it was like, just, you're being dumb, like, just listen to us, like, we're telling you what to do. And the amount of like eye rolls I used to get from doctors, or like frustration, and I'd say, I'm not going on the pill, I'm not doing it, there has to be something else. They probably just think, oh, this young girl, she's no idea what she's talking about. So they just dismiss you. And it's so frustrating to hear that there are so many women like us who are struggling just to get heard. And it's,
my angle is that the medical system is obviously amazing in so many ways and has to be there. But when it's coming to menstrual cycle or reproductive related issues, like, I'm just thinking, like, I'm going into a holistic space every time. And like, I do know, I have a community of practitioners that I have been acquainted with that it's like, what, we need to bring this into the mainstream. And there's like so many ways in which that's inaccessible for people, because it's almost like private healthcare, but holistic healthcare, because it is expensive, but it's so much less invasive. And also you're going to be met with someone that's like open to like a deeper, like a physiological conversation, but also like emotional, and understanding that people need time and space. And like, yeah, I think that's my particular standing. But I don't have endo, but I talk to a lot of people that have it, and I'm like, you know what, there's these practitioners that are kind of, they would have been called witches, or they probably still are called witches. It's like, do you know what, maybe we should just like become, take on that witchy label again, and be like, do you know what, I'm going to try and go at this with like nutrition, herbalism, speaking to a naturopath.
It's so funny because one of my best friend, her mum is like a chef. She's like on TV, talks about food and like anti-aging and all that stuff. And she wrote a book about how amazing spices are for our body. And every single spice has like a natural remedy. So like turmeric, for example, is really anti-inflammatory. And when it was getting really bad for me, kind of like January, February time, I was like, okay, this could, because I was told that the waiting list for a laparoscopy was 2 years. So I kind of was like, put it at the back of my head, like, this is going to take a long time. And I just did my own research, and there's so much online about natural things that you can do. And funnily enough, I stupidly only did it for 1 month because I fell ill and then fell out of the routine. But for that 1 month, I'd just previously done a blood test to see all the things that I was deficient in. So I was taking all of my supplements. I was taking omega-3, which apparently is amazing for endometriosis. I was drinking turmeric tea. I was doing all these things. And actually, that was the only month that I didn't have the pain after my period. And I'm so stupid because I didn't carry on doing it because I didn't feel well. And then I ended up just falling out of the routine. But I proved to myself that there is actually an answer here. I don't know if it was a fluke. I don't know what it was, but I was like, if I can do this from taking supplements and changing my diet, I cut out alcohol, I've stopped drinking caffeine, I've done all the things, tried to do as many things as I can that are going to fit into my lifestyle and not feel like a hassle, because then you won't do it. And something's changed. So more recently, when I've been telling my family, I've been like, I've got endometriosis and this is what they're saying to me. And I say, I'm not going to have the coil. They're like, what? I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. Like, I know there is an answer out there that is more holistic, it's better for my body than just putting this coil in my body. That's not it's a short-term fix. I need to be able to make this a long-term fix so that I'm not struggling with this for the rest of my life. And I wish there were more people out there talking about the holistic things that you could do, because so many women just think, and actually horrifically, someone replied to me and said that when she had her laparoscopy, they put a coil inside her and it's caused her so many problems for the last 2 years that it was just like, she was like, I can't believe they've done this to me. Like, it's just made everything so much worse.
Yeah, and that's the thing, the coil is another massive conversation, and that affects people so differently. But there's a major issue in the fact that it's like the pill or the coil. We just need more research. We need more funding into it. Absolutely. you know, we are in a movement, which is a really positive thing, where I think that in the definitely last 5 years, it's just a lot of people are talking about this, and it's starting to become slightly more mainstream, like slightly. And
definitely we're edging there closer.
But you know, it is baffling. You know, we've got, like I said, something like 800 million people menstruating at least every day. And that doesn't account for so many other people that have a womb or had a womb, or, you know, there's a lot of people, and it's like we need that attention. We need the attention, we need the knowledge. And
we just need to, I think we need to break the stigma. Like, I remember feeling so self-conscious. I remember sitting at work and being in so much pain and feeling like I couldn't tell my boss that I needed to go home because they're going to judge you and say, oh, like, it's only period pain. And I always used to say to my friends, if men had periods and dealt with the issues like period pain and endometriosis, we would be shouting it from the rooftops, and every single doctor would be helping men get through it. And no, they wouldn't shut up about it, and they wouldn't be silenced about talking about their periods because it's gross and all of this stuff. And it's just not fair. And the fact that there are so many people that feel that way, that it's clearly like a woman's thing, is just so hurtful.
It is. And, you know, we all came from the fact that our mamas could have periods anyway. So when I'm speaking to men, I'm like, that's how this is relevant to you. And
exactly.
You know, I mean, again, that's another whole conversation on how we get other people interested in the topic. But this is a vulnerable moment. Like, there's power in this vulnerability of saying, this is my story, this is what I've been through. And there's so many different layers to it that I hope will create compassion that then leads to action. And, you know, that's the intention really with having the power behind sharing stories. I think it's like going to drive some good change, basically.
I agree.